feel like there should be a little dancey dance in the
I
front,
know there should be like an intro song in the very beginning.
right? I know. Oh, I can do that. So I was looking at one of my other courses. I did do an intro song, and I was like, okay, we should add this. We should have like our own special
Mm, mm, mm.
thing, you know?
Even if we're not on the beat, we'll just pretend there's a beat.
Yeah. Right. I know. I just make up my own beat. Sometimes I wish that I could beatbox. Like, I don't know if that's something you've ever wished, but my son is always like trying to show me.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, I was like, do I hear you? I thought I muted you. I didn't.
Oh,
But I was like, I really would like to do it. And he'll be like, no, mom, that's
that's
just not, just stop. I'm like, okay.
that's when you definitely have to do
Yes.
it.
Yeah. And like, yeah, my children tell me no, like no dancing, no singing. I'm like, definitely doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you have to do it. When somebody says no, be the rebel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
So welcome to you two, right?
yeah.
Cheers to our morning coffee and welcome. It's Friday. Gosh, it's been like a hot minute since we've been out here. And there were all the things. First, it was me out of town, and then we had someone who was sick, and she's not here today. So it's Genevieve is out, and it's just me and Sarah. Today, we're going to talk about love because this week is Love Week, right? I mean, every week should be Love Week, but
Every week is love week. Exactly.
yeah. But this week, people like, they talk about it. So we thought we would talk about it for the whole
Yeah.
month of February.
Love
Hi,
it.
Harvey. See,
I know.
he loves the camera. He's like,
Harvey loves.
and we're live. He
Yes,
heard it. We're
exactly.
live.
Every time, as soon as like he hears excitement in my voice too, like he's like, "Oh, this is when she
Yeah.
talks." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm here to listen, mom." Like,
Well, and I wondered too if he's like coming to like calm you down, like, just relax, mom. It's all good.
I know,
Like he's
right?
like your emotional support dog. He's like,
I
just
know,
relax.
right? Like, this is fine. I got you. What he really wants, watch this. Do you want to go outside?
Yeah. He's like, okay, here we go.
What he wants. Okay, I'm just gonna open the door, which is right here.
Okay, go for it. So while she's away, I'm just going to say, so just know that we're just here talking about just fun things. And this is not a substitute for like any diagnosis. We're not doctors. We're not, anything that we're not trying to help anybody just figure it out themselves. We're just trying to give you tools that we have used in our own lives. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. We're just
Yeah.
really out here talking just to
Mhm.
give you guys like a space to talk about things that could be hard. And
Yeah.
so I think relationships are really hard. And
Mhm.
like that's probably one of the things that I really love. We've been reading the five love languages. Now this is the five love languages of children,
Mhm.
but we've been reading the five love languages in your group, your free
Wow.
mindset group on
Mhm.
Facebook.
Mhm.
And it's just amazing, like the things that you can really utilize
Oh
these
yeah.
tools for your relationships.
Mhm.
And so we just thought we would talk a little bit about the book today and maybe share our own like relationship things that we've done.
Mhm.
I know you and Eddie have been together forever. Me and my husband have been together forever. So
Yeah.
we must
Mhm.
be doing something right.
I know, right? Like, have we figured out each other's love languages?
Right.
Yeah. What is
Right.
happening? I think
Right.
I think that early on, like I have to give kudos to Eddie. I mean, that was early on in our relationship. He had moved away after 2 weeks we dated. And he didn't move away because we were dating. Like he had a job lined up. That sounds terrible. He was like, I can't be around you.
We
Bye.
moved
No.
away because we were dating.
Yeah. See you later. But no, he did like 2 weeks after we just started dating. He's like, I have another job like out in Pennsylvania. So he did move from
Oh my
Indiana to
gosh.
Pennsylvania. And I'm like, well, we're gonna be together forever anyway, eventually. And so
I love it.
we just knew. And so one of the books though he had recommended was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which
Mhm.
that book is kind of reversed for us. I was like, I didn't realize how masculine I am. But it's so funny how like he then read over the phone and he does voiceover. So he has a great voice. Like I really fell in
Yeah.
love with his voice even more, like as we were, not physically
That's
together.
so cool.
And yeah, it was so sweet. So I got the book. I don't know where it is because I remember reading alongside while he was talking. But it was really neat because we went through the whole book then, and we had the same first three love languages in order, and then the last two were reversed. And so
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, oh my gosh. So in some ways, yes, it makes it easier because you're speaking the same language, but it's okay if you don't have the same language. What's important
Yeah.
is like understanding. Actually, what's really important is at first understanding your own, because
Yeah.
like I think like in order to really love others, like you have to understand like you can't have this void that you're looking for others to
Yeah.
fill.
Yeah.
I think that's like the first part, like really understanding yourself is so, so key. And that's what personal growth and development does. It's like
Yeah.
it gives you a starting place to work from that when you start to hear these things, you'll, that's why I think journaling is so important and just like
Yeah.
talking about it and, hearing what other people want to share about it, because that really has helped me too, to be like, okay, am I using this, I got through the first two. So the first one was quality time and the second one was gifts. And it's like, even from the context of like quality time, are you spending quality time with yourself? Like,
Yeah.
or are you so busy saying yes to everybody else that you feel like you have no time for yourself to do the things that
Yeah,
are taking care of
absolutely.
you? So I feel like, even in relationships, I think it's super important to really heal the relationship with yourself first.
So
Um,
good.
so yeah, that's kind of the way we're kind of going into this book, is like trying to remember, like, this isn't always about, how to tell others to love, for them to love you, or
Right.
how to show love to other people. It's like, okay, take it from like yourself first.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of healing that can be done so that you can fully love others, and you're okay to like talk about, what, this would really fill my cup, if
Yeah.
we did this together. Like it creates bravery and courage to ask for what you need in life. So I don't
So
know.
beautiful.
Yeah, I loved
I
it.
love that you shared that. And I think too, something that I've kind of been really doing a lot of research in my practice is codependency, because I have codependency habit. I mean, not habits, but tendencies. And I think that part of that is like you kind of learn it from your parents. So like as parents, I think we try to like love our children so much that we almost like intertwine with them. Like we want to do everything for them. We want to be there for them. We never want them to get hurt. And so like obviously I probably learned that from my mom. I know my mom is so loving and she just adores me, and my brothers, not just me. Though my brothers would say that she loves me more, which is not the truth. Just so we all know. I'm just the only girl, so I think there was a
Oh,
little bit of a difference. But
yeah.
I think what happens is if we're not shown how to love ourselves by our parents, we have to figure that out for ourselves. And if we don't, it turns into like a codependent behavior because we start looking to people to fill our love cup. And then when it doesn't happen, then it creates this like toxic relationship of like take, 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 take. And then you're like, but you feel like you're giving because you're trying to fill their love cup, and maybe they've got a healthy relationship with themselves. And
Mhm.
they're like, whoa, I just need to like, you do you, I'll do me, and then we'll come together. And I think that that's really
Mhm.
what's so important as human beings is like not only talking about that, but also recognizing, oh wow, their cup must be a little bit more empty because they're starting to try and draw more from me, or maybe they're expecting more, or
Yeah.
codependence is like you start trying to give more to other people so that you'll get more. And
Mm.
and it's not just a one way that codependence is. I mean, codependency is really about like taking care of others and taking the focus off of yourself. So it's
Mm.
also a way to like
Yeah.
avoiding, I don't know what's happening right now. Oh, it's my mom. I was like, I don't know what's happening. My
Oh.
phone is going crazy. She's probably
I
like,
knew
are we
you
meditating?
mentioned her name. She's like, "Oh, I do love you the most." I know.
I know. She's like, and here I am.
And here
And
I am. You
we're supposed to be
mentioned I love
meditating.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I love
Yeah.
it.
So I
Oh,
feel like it's really great that you brought that up. So I think that that's probably the number one thing that we should encourage you if you're struggling with relationships.
mhm.
First, take a look at yourself and say, okay, how is my relationship with myself?
Mhm.
Am I doing personal development? Am I doing the things that are going to fill my cup? Am I journaling? Am I meditating? If you have a relationship with God or spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, having a
Mhm.
relationship with some sort of like
Yeah.
source outside of yourself that's not human. And,
Mhm.
and even if it's not necessarily something that you are believing in, it's got to be something within yourself that you believe
Mhm.
can kind of bring you back to center and just allow you to be grounded and know that you're loved all the time, whether you're loved by other humans.
Yeah, definitely.
But like our connection, I think the connection with each other, like that's why we're here, is to be interdependent, to lean on one another.
Mhm.
There is a time and a place for all of that, but it's like you have to find this really beautiful balance. And I
Mhm.
love the way that like the five languages talks about
Mhm.
that filling your cup in different ways. So not just like
Yeah.
touch, like not just hugging someone, like not all kids and not all people like to be hugged.
Yeah. Mhm.
Some people don't even like to be complimented. Like you have to figure out what works for people.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sharing
Oh,
this space with this little doggy, and
yeah.
she's like taking
Oh.
up the whole entire chair. Like,
Right. Little
I
dogs
help.
somehow have this Napoleon complex that takes up.
Yeah, they're like, here I am. And she like keeps pushing me further out of the chair.
Oh my
She's like,
gosh.
it's my space. Like,
Yep, right.
but then
Their
if I
little
got up
legs
and left,
hurt so much. I know.
yes.
Yeah, Batman is the same way. Yeah,
See, she's
exactly.
like,
He's so
but
cute.
if I got up and left, she would follow me out.
Oh, right. Like,
She's like, she wants me to be here, but give me space.
yeah. See, yeah, I love that you mentioned dogs because I feel like dogs, oh my gosh, I love that they know their love language and they're
Yeah.
not afraid to tell you what it is. I'm like, we need to have the bravery of a dog when it comes to telling others what we need in life. Like,
Yeah.
they'll scratch us, they'll look at us, they'll bark, they'll
Yeah.
put it in close,
Push them
like,
in.
yeah, exactly. They're like, bring me food, and they'll
Yeah.
bark at you. Like they will. They'll tell you all the love
Yeah.
languages. And
Clean
it's
up my poop.
yeah, I know. Clean out my poop.
Yeah.
Active service for me, please, right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So true. I know. But no,
Yeah.
I love that. And I feel like you touched on something where it just kind of reminded me of there's different times in my life where I'm like, ooh, I was like, I can tell like my cup is not full, so I should not be around people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think that's also something to come into like really recognize, because I think when we're just like short-tempered, when something like when we look back and we're like, man, why did that set us off? Like I think sometimes we're not, like we need to look at those 5 love languages and understand like, okay, am I doing my due diligence at filling my own cup so that I can be around people who maybe they are, takers, but you can't really avoid some people in life, right? Like I think we don't want to, because they might be family, they might be relationships that we feel like
They might be family.
they might be family. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Right.
Hopefully my family doesn't watch this. No.
Right. Like,
But I do feel like you have to like look at each one. And if you guys have never heard of The 5 Love Languages, it's a great book by Gary Chapman. But let's talk on, maybe even this month, like we can touch on each of those.
Yeah.
But it starts off, I know the first one is quality time, or at least that he talks about in the book, and then gifts. I'm not sure what 3, 4, I know what 3, 4, and 5 are, but I don't know the order of them. But again,
I could probably tell you because I think it's in, I can look at
acts
them.
of service, touch, and words of affirmation are.
Yep. Yeah, physical. So it's interesting because in here, so I wonder if it's because it's kids. And here, number 1 is physical touch, which makes sense because kids are just coming into the world, needing to be loved and touched.
Yeah.
And then love language 2 is words of affirmation, which also makes sense because they don't really know what they're doing. They like need to be told like you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then quality time, gifts, and then acts of service. So it's interesting how it's different order.
Yeah. I wonder what the order was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that might change. It does. And they do say it does change over time.
Yeah.
Because obviously if that cup is full, it almost like lets you explore other languages too. Which is a good thing. Like you want to be able to, have, obviously perfection is not going to happen. You're not going to be full all the time in all the languages, but it does allow you to explore those languages with other people and understand like, oh, wow, it's okay to get close. I think that's the thing with getting close to people. Like you even said, like some people just don't want to touch each other. Like, I don't want to hug you. And I remember thinking that even as a kid, like I didn't really like hug as much as I do now. And then COVID happened and
there's hope for my children.
Yeah. No, seriously. Like I was like,
and I'm like, could be.
Yeah, no, I was like, and still, I was like, I don't want to get my makeup done because I don't want people touching my eyeball. Like that closeness, I'm like,
so funny.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I am a very touchy person though, so I guess it just depends on what it is that in context too. But I do try to like. Yeah,
we should do emotion code around that because I bet that there is some sort of thing that's attached to physical touch and like maybe some sort of like traumatic thing happened when you were a child that you're like, no, don't touch me.
I know, right? Leave me alone. Yeah, but I am like very much a hug person now, so it's almost like but as a child, so yeah, there's definitely hope. You know what I mean? Like because I feel like over time it does change, and when you're around the right person who allows you to explore that, like. I kind of touched on that with Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, because I was like, man, I was, it's funny. And in that book, in my early 20s, when we listened to it, I was like, oh, wow, I was not as sensitive as I am now. Like, but I remember growing up, like, that was a big thing that, you would get made fun of, or like, why are you crying? You're such a baby. Like, I remember getting that from my brothers. And so it was like, no, I'm not, and you build this hard shell. And now it's something where I'm like, Oh my gosh, I'm crying again. Okay, no, I'm embracing it. I'm embracing it. I
Okay.
love that I'm cheering up. I'm an emotional person, and I'm
Yeah.
also not a psychopath, so that's a good thing.
You've opened up the pathway to like, and that's one of the things that in emotion code is that you have to allow yourself to
Mhm.
feel because that's how we heal. And like when you
Yeah,
hold back all those emotions, that's where it creates disease. Like
right.
disease is dis-ease in the body. Like it's not allowing yourself to be connected to what you're really feeling and you're
Mhm.
stopping it. So it's almost like you're stopping your authentic self from coming out.
Wow.
And then
Mhm.
it's like
It's
it's
true.
almost like when you shake up a bottle that has like all the seltzer water and like, you
Mhm.
go to pop and then it like it like explodes. So like when you do release it, it's like this crazy mess of just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's good to just let it flow whenever you feel the need
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah,
healthy.
it is. It definitely is.
So what's weird is I like you were saying about how it changes over time.
Mhm.
So my birthday was last week and I really felt like I was physical touch and quality time. But
Mhm.
what's funny is you usually do your love language, like your love language is, thank you. Are you leaving? Okay. Love you. Bye.
Oh,
Speaking of my love.
all right.
Um,
Oh.
so like, what was I saying? Now I'm like,
Oh,
I don't know what I was saying.
oh,
Got all
you had like
distracted.
touch and quality time during your birthday?
Yes.
You noticed,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they say that you give most what you need to receive. So like,
Yeah.
typically people will do what they want to receive. And I guess I'm an acts of service person, but I thought it was because I was a mom. But then
Yeah.
my husband like did all these things for my birthday that I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, my love language is acts of service
Oh,
because he like booked my flight to go see a friend. He like called her and planned everything. Like he was like, hey, she's coming to town. Can you help me? Like did all the things. Then he
oh,
flew my mom in and like booked her ticket and booked us a hotel room so I could wake up. I've been
yeah.
asking for this for years to wake up in a
Oh,
hotel room on my birthday because
yeah.
as a mom, like your
Yeah.
kids are always like, mom, mom. And it's not that I don't love them. Like
Yeah.
I love them so much. But one day out of the year, I would love to sleep in and wake up. And that's what he gave me. I was so excited.
I'm letting my dog in.
Okay.
Yeah, that is so sweet. Oh my
So,
gosh.
and then I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's like acts of service. So then it made me realize like maybe my love language is shifting as I'm growing older. And so it's interesting. Like as you start to pay attention to the different types of love languages, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I guess I
Mhm.
do like that.
Yeah. And it's awesome that you also did voice it though too. So I think
Yeah.
like, the fact that you're like, "Oh, I've always wanted that."
Hmm.
So you did a good job of at least like letting on to say those things. I mean, sometimes people think, "Well, they should know or they
Oh
should
yeah.
assume." And it's like, "No, never make assumptions. Like you
Yeah.
have to be
Ladies,
correct." And yeah.
men do not know. Like I'm just gonna tell you this right now. They don't know. If you're waiting for them to know, they're never gonna know. Like
You're never gonna know.
never.
Yeah. Or
It,
Sarah, because I feel like Eddie knows more than I do.
I was gonna say it could go both ways.
Depends
No,
on the
I shouldn't say
relationship. Yeah.
ladies.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
should
I'm like,
say
okay, I have to remember
yeah.
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's say it this way. If you are a human and you're waiting for someone to know what you want, it's never going to happen
Yeah.
because you have to tell someone that if there's things that you desire, because most of the time the person that's like, oh yeah, you're
Yeah.
leaving. Bye.
Mhm.
Love you. See all
Aw,
my everybody
oh, same
saying
back.
bye. Yeah, that one was
Aw.
one of my kids. They won't give me, well, I mean, they hug me like it's an obligatory hug. They're like, the sidearm hug.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I'm like, someday I'm just gonna get a big bear hug. They're gonna miss me and they're gonna be like,
Mhm.
Mom. That's my
Like
dream in my head.
30
But I tell them,
seconds. Yeah,
yeah,
there you go. Put it
I
out there
tell
in
them
the
all the time, I'm
universe.
like, I love you and I want to hug you. And they're like, please don't.
Oh,
And I'm
please.
like,
Yeah.
okay. So like
You should say mom's love list and like put it on a
I
post-it and like put it on their door.
love that. We could do
Embrace
that
me
with
for 30
everybody.
embrace me for 30 seconds sometime this week.
I love
It's
that.
like just
That
put
would
it
be
out
so
there.
cute.
Yeah, I know,
I,
right? I love that.
yeah.
No,
Because
seriously.
and I have all men in my house. So like I feel like I'm probably the most sensitive, but I
Oh,
have two of my boys that are pretty sensitive and they do sensitive things. So it's really not male to female. I think it's just your personality and like
yeah.
again, like how you were raised and how you were touched, like one of the things we learned, we used to foster. And so one of the things that we took this class and I think it was Karen Purvis is her name,
Okay.
but she talked a lot about how like the brain and the body connect when we're infants and how it like really teaches a lot of what the love languages are. Like it really teaches babies how they could be loved, how they should be loved. And it really
Hmm.
It's the pathway to like how we connect with infants.
Yeah.
And so she talked about like how you hold a baby when they're born and like how you connect with it is
Yeah.
very determinate on how they will be as an adult. So like they did a study back in the 80s, which is so weird to think that they were doing this back then. But
Hmm.
like this woman, they would have different women come in with their babies and watch how they fed them. And
Okay.
like one of the
Wow.
moms was like a business lady. She came in and like gave the baby a bottle. And like, she was just very like, okay, it's lunchtime. I just have to like it was a daycare. And so they were just watching, they all agreed to this
Hmm.
research. And the woman, she came in and she was just like kind of disconnected. And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
I love you. And
Yeah.
she was disconnected. Speaking of all my children, they've all are coming into the
I
room.
know, right? I love that. They're all making a connection with you right now. That's awesome.
So
Oh.
like she was very like disconnected. And then they had another woman come in and she was very like, hi, like talking to the baby, and the baby was engaging. And it
Yeah.
was really sad to watch because like the one woman that was like not, that she was really like, you could see she was really focused on her career and like she wanted to just get back.
Hmm.
That baby was like seeking, like looking for her eye contact, looking for her to connect. And she
Yeah.
never did. And so they actually followed these babies up through until I want to
Wow.
say early 20s.
Okay.
So it was like maybe late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And these children, like they had one that didn't get the connection. He
Mhm.
was very like, didn't like to be touched, wasn't very good with relationships, had
Okay.
a lot of issues like trying to
Mhm.
communicate. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
very interesting how our babies don't, there's
Mhm.
so much that goes into like having that connection when we're first born.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder when you meet people like
Yeah.
how their infancy was and like did they get the connection that they needed, and there's
Right.
nothing wrong with it. Like it's not to say that that's wrong. It's
Mhm.
just how it is, right? Like
Yeah. Mhm. Well, and I feel like too, until you like really take that role of who am I? Like, why do I act this way? Like, how can I improve my own mindset in this area, this area, this area? Like, I think like we're such reactionary beings because like sometimes we don't grow out of that. You meet somebody and you're like, oh man, like they just seem like they have such a rough life, but it's almost like by choice,
yeah,
And it's like you like from the outside in looking and looking
yeah,
at someone, it's a lot easier to analyze and look
right,
at somebody that way. So I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot easier said than done to do it for yourself.
yeah,
But I think like that's so true that until you take on that responsibility, or you're in a group of people who want that growth
yeah,
also, like that community care that, I mean, Genevieve's talked about that too, where it's like you have to be open to change and open to,
yeah,
a growth mindset in order to like relearn these behaviors that maybe from childhood you've brought into adulthood and you carry on the rest of your life. And it's such a like, I mean, you do the emotion code. I mean, like you know more than anyone, like these are trapped emotions that
yeah,
stay with people for their entire life. And it's such a hard life.
yeah.
And so that's where it's like so interesting. But that when you mentioned that, another great series, Eddie and I, man, we started watching it, I think in 2009 maybe, but it's called the 7 Up series. I don't
Oh,
know
I've
if
never
you've heard
seen
of
it.
it.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. It started in, I want to say they're the same age as my mom. So I think it started in like 1959.
oh wow.
Yeah, and it followed, I want to say like 15 kids that were 7 years old. And every 7 years they're interviewed, and they're up to like 69, 70. They just did their 69th one.
Oh wow.
And it is so same thing with like you see a
What's it
child.
on?
It's from like the UK. And I think we found it on YouTube, and then
Okay.
I think
Sign up
either
series.
Peacock bought it or something, but we ended up like following wherever it was sold because we're like, oh,
Yeah.
7 years, we have to watch the next one. Like, 'cause-
That's so, but that's
but
commitment, right?
it is commitment. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we ended up watching all of them, and we got my sister and her family on it, and we're like,
Well,
"You guys
you're gonna get
want to
me.
watch the next 7 Up series?" It's like 4 hours long because
I'm
because
sure. I'm
they
sure.
they follow them and they touch on, because I mean, obviously, it's like you don't remember from what they said when they were 7, so they'll do
Yeah.
like interjection of like little points, but it's really interesting because even just women, the way they were looked at in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it wasn't a lot of women empowerment. It wasn't a lot of, choice for people, like, just the mindset that was going
Yeah.
on. They also kind of looked at, it was just so interesting. I mean, obviously it's also sad because, people age,
Yeah.
people die. But it's just such an interesting way of like, you can kind of see, with knowing people's love languages, you can see
Yeah.
how it wasn't represented and something happened that was maybe, wow, that need wasn't fulfilled for them, and I can see how that, portrayed in the rest of their life. Or there's some people who didn't have that, but they were able to find a solution, an answer, and a community. And I don't know, it's just such a great series, and it really, like, if you like human behavior and like looking and
I
watching
love it.
that, yeah, I was like, that's a
I'm gonna
great
watch it.
show. Yeah, this is not sponsored, you guys, and we're not
Right.
telling.
It's not sponsored. We don't get paid for this.
You don't
So
get paid
don't
unless Seven Up series wants to pay us. That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
But if you
such a
want to
great.
pay us, we are accepting application. No,
We will
we will
accept
take your money if you want to
any
get it.
payment.
Any payment, right?
Exactly.
You can pay us
Anything.
with like
Yeah,
even love. You can pay us with love.
exactly. Or a trip to the UK. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Or the
That
coconut.
was amazing. But it's just such a cool way to like kind of look at it
It's
from
cool.
that perspective.
Well,
So I
and
don't know.
I don't know if you ever, if you attended I know I think you did attend my emotion code workshop, right? Where we talked about inherited and absorbed emotion.
Yeah, I think you did it longer than an hour, and I had a call right at the
Yeah,
hour
that's what I
mark.
was
So
gonna think.
yeah,
That's what I was
it
thinking.
was.
And I
Mhm.
think that part was towards the end, but real quick. So what's interesting about inherited and absorbed emotions is that, you mentioned the genre of the women empowerment, like women did not work and they didn't have a voice. Like
Mhm.
it's funny because my mom just mentioned that this week, that she was raised that women just don't have power. They can't
Mhm.
make money. They can't do this. They can't do that. Like that was
Mhm.
very much the generation she was raised in because of her mom. And so what happens is, what's interesting about cellular structure, like we're very energetic beings, we're all made of energy, but
Mhm.
like when we have people who are related, when they're genetic, what's
Mhm.
interesting is they're able to tune frequency together. So like emotions are basically energy coming out of the body, like crying, happiness. So
Mhm.
when you have a parent who's very unhappy, depressed, then that child will very easily slip into that. If you have a
Mhm.
parent who's happy, joyful, then the child will slip into that. And so they just begin to become almost like a little tuning fork. Like you have your big tuning fork and your little one, and they're
Yeah.
the same frequency. And so what happens is, as that little child ages,
Mhm.
that all those absorbed emotions, those inherited emotions,
Wow.
they just get stuck in the body from the parent because the child doesn't know what it is. They don't know how to release that. And
Mhm.
it's just very interesting because they actually did a study of a guy who was in the war.
Mhm.
Um, and
Mhm.
I did you hear this story already where he had cells removed from his body?
Yes, that was in that book that we had
Yeah.
started. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the example that I use in my workshop is
Mhm.
they put on a video of the war, like clips from the war, and then they put his cells in a petri dish. I don't
Mhm.
think it was a petri dish,
I
but
think it
that's
was
what
like
happened.
plasma, or yeah,
Yeah,
something like
plasma,
that,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
they basically monitored the cells that came from his body while he was watching the video, and the cells were reacting the same way the cells were reacting in his body. So like he was having the same experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they took the plasma or cells down the street, like they took them further away, and they still did the same thing when they played the war clips. So it
Mhm.
makes you realize that like
Mhm.
any time that your genes or your cellular structure is like connected to someone or something, then it's like, okay, you can actually experience their loss. That's why when we
Yeah.
as humans, like the Super Bowl, there was
Mhm.
probably so much energy in that Super Bowl, like halftime show, everybody was so excited for Usher. We're all like ready to live Usher again.
Mhm.
I'm sure that the experience physically was
Yeah.
probably really cool in the stadium because I could feel it through the TV. Like I could feel the
Mhm.
excitement and the joy.
Mhm.
And so that's how human connection works. So when we talk about changing the world, like you can literally change the world with just that feeling of love, the feeling of joy, like being together and experiencing joyful things, classes, like coming and taking dance fitness classes, or being in a community where we share in the joy and the happiness. Like
Yeah.
that's really how we create a healthy lifestyle, is by sharing our love languages with each other and also sharing our emotions, like just letting everything flow.
Yeah, it's so true. I think like, yeah, it brings it more to real life, like when you can also like hear it and talk about it. And this is kind of a weird segue. I was like, this is why I love Star Trek. I'm really into Star Trek right now. I'm like so weird. I go through
You're
these
not.
bouts of like Gilmore Girls, and then I'm like, I need my nerd like
Sci-fi.
give me something else, give me some sci-fi. And
Yeah.
it's like they will explore that of like people and beings like all feeling things, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is kind of woo-woo, but it's not. It's like this could be real, like we just open our mind up to
Okay.
it. And I just love that type of
Yeah.
like say fantasy, but it's really not, because like it's so true. Like you've experienced that where you have that crazy, or not, it's not crazy, it's just
It
like
is crazy. I mean,
it is crazy. No, it's not crazy. I don't mean that.
I know you
I
don't.
think it's crazy cool. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know crazy can be
In the
used.
best way.
Yeah, in the best way. But even with you experiencing, in that group of people, and you said, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm gonna faint, you know? I mean, do you mind sharing that story
Yeah.
with?
Yeah. So, and I really think that everyone has the ability to do what I do. It's just that people haven't honed in on that specific thing. But I had an instance where, and I think it was right when I first started studying the emotion code,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't really like occur to me to link the two, but I ended up, oh, she's going to give me my chair back. Hang on.
I
She's
feel
like,
like
here,
you're
mom,
taking
you can,
advantage of this.
I
There we
got
go.
all the space now. She's like, you're too hot. Get off me.
All right.
So I walked into this, it was so crowded. There was like so many parents. It was gymnastics for my son, and
Mm-hmm.
all the parents sit in this little room.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I were sitting in the front row watching my son, and I was like starting to feel kind of like almost nauseous, dizzy. Like I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Like something feels wrong. And so I touched my husband. I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, no. And then in that instant, like something told me to look left. And I turned and looked right as this woman like faints, just collapses to the floor. Her husband caught her, thankfully. But I
Mm-hmm.
was like, as soon as she passed out, I felt instantly better. So I was like, oh my gosh, that was so weird. And my
Yeah.
husband's like, are you okay? He's like, maybe. And I was like, no, I feel fine now that she like blacked out, but it was so weird.
It was her,
Like,
not me. I'm fine.
yeah, yeah. So I was, and I
But
think
like
what
you
it is,
felt that
yeah, I
emotion
feel
come
it.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think because I've been open to it, but that
Hmm.
can happen like, so
Yeah.
twofold. I can actually feel things probably to a degree that are not, it's probably not healthy to like, so I've learned how to kind of close it off. Like when I was flying, I was like trying to find the person on the plane that was like panicking because I was like, my heart was feeling weird. And I was like, okay, I never get this way when I fly. So I was
Yeah.
like, there's got to be someone near me that's like having a panic attack. Cause I was like, I know it's not me. So I'm like, shut down all the senses, turn off the spidey tingle.
All right. Yeah. Or like say a prayer for that person and be like, you're okay.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
not here. You're not alone. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Even for me when I fly, I'm like, if I hear a baby cry on an airplane, I'm like, okay, we're gonna be okay. God's
Yeah.
not gonna he's gonna protect the baby. Like honestly, when people, it's such a, I don't know why I think this, but then when I hear like a baby cry, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a relief. Like, I
You're
don't
like,
know.
God can.
Everybody else is like, oh, the baby, and I'm like, oh no, like let it cry. Okay.
He's like, we're good people. There's
We're
an
good,
innocent life
fine.
on
Yeah,
the
I
plane.
know, I know. And then my heart always goes out to the
Good.
mom that's like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's not. No, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
I'm glad your baby's crying.
You know what's funny is there was a woman, my husband flew on a flight, and there was a woman that she was like had these little baggies and they had a note inside. And so like the 8 people that were sitting around her when they got on the plane, after everybody sat down, then she handed out these 8 little bags.
Oh,
And it had like chocolate and like these cute little like candies. And then the note said, hi, my name is whatever his name. It was the baby's was a boy. My name
oh,
is Noah or something. And then it was like, I'm 8 weeks old. It's my first flight. I might get scared. So please don't get upset if I cry. And
oh,
know that my mom is doing her very best to try and keep me calm. And I
yeah.
was like, that's
Wow.
such a wonderful mother.
Right?
I
Such a
was like, good
sweetheart.
job. So it was the
Yeah.
sweetest thing. Like I was like, if
Oh,
you get on a flight, like do that because I think when you
yeah.
introduce you
Mhm.
like yourself as like, I'm really just trying my very best. I
Right?
mean, not everyone has
Mhm.
patience for that, but I think as human beings, we need to have more patience and
Mhm.
knowing like they are really doing their best. And maybe some people aren't doing what we think is their best, but
Mhm.
maybe they're doing their best for what they can in that moment. Like that's
Right?
what I always go to. I'm always just like, this person may have had, maybe they lost their grandma that morning, or maybe
Yeah.
like they got divorced that week.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on? Like we just have to be
Exactly.
more
It's so
gentle
true.
and loving.
Yeah. Makes
And,
me want to
and
cry
I
because that
know.
I know that story so well because my one of my best friends lost her husband and had an 8-year-old and an 8-month-old and was in Florida and had to fly back
Yeah.
like a day later. And so she was just like numb. She's like, I don't even remember if my kids were crazy that night or whatever. She's like, I was just so numb to everything. And so like I can just imagine her sitting there by herself. And it's like, oh, makes me want to cry. It's okay. But you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
everything's
Like,
fine.
oh, I know, right? It's okay. But I can just imagine like, yeah, there could be somebody going through something as hard as
Right.
that. And so just to practice that kindness and patience
Hmm.
to, a kid that's misbehaving and it's like, that's okay. Like the mom
Yeah.
could have just lost her spouse. Like
Right.
that has happened. And I know from one of my best friends, like,
Right.
oh my
Right.
gosh, I can't even imagine the pain. And, just to like let people be okay in that moment of like, they're not at their best and their emotions are high or whatever is going on. I feel like, and even with the Super Bowl, that's like, you saw what's his name? I don't even know.
Oh,
Kelso?
Kelsey, Kelsey. I
Kelsey?
don't even know.
I don't
What's
follow.
Taylor's
Oh,
boyfriend?
I didn't even see I honestly I was like, wait, who won the Super Bowl? Because I after the Usher concert, we went home.
Right. I know. It's like
I was like, I
after
didn't
this,
see it.
after I
But
checked out.
yeah, but I did see people like, oh my gosh, look how terrible, and I did see that part of it, and you
Yeah.
could hear everybody in the room like that we were watching it with. They're like, oh my gosh, what a jerk, and da da da, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably really hard, all the tensions, and I didn't really think that much of it, but then I saw a post that went viral about like,
Yeah.
wow, he could have been. We don't know the tension of that. I mean,
So
that's
what
a
happened?
lot of tension.
I don't even know what happened.
Oh, he had reacted to his coach and he like went up to him and he just like yelled at him and his coach was like, and it's that older guy. He
Yeah.
looks like the
Yeah, with the
Monopoly
beard.
guy. Yeah, he looks like Monopoly dude. And but it was just like, so everybody was like reacted like, oh my gosh, he's such a jerk. And like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, like, I guess it's a cool thing to hate Taylor Swift right now. And I'm like, I didn't know this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think this is right to hate anyone. Like, I don't
Right.
know. It just depends. You can get this vibe from people that,
Yeah.
they're just there to like, carry on whatever drama there is and then say, here's the conspiracy. This is why we should hate this person. I'm like, well, community's built out of love or out of hate. So I'm going to choose to love. And
Yeah.
again, I don't personally know Taylor Swift. So how do I
Right.
have an opinion?
Right. What does it matter? Who, like,
Yeah,
who
what
she,
does it matter? Yeah, exactly. Sorry, not to go off on this tangent, but
no,
I
but
did
I think it's
during
good.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but during that, it was very much a moment in time that was captured by millions of people that
Yeah.
here's a jerk and now everybody hates him. And it's like, no, he could have been so like, I mean, the tension of being there, being in front of a place to perform,
Yeah.
and if something doesn't go right, taking all of that on. Think of that. Like, we can't even imagine that type of emotion because,
Right.
10 people might be in a room and we're embarrassed. But can you imagine millions and millions of people? Like, yeah,
Having, yeah.
maybe a billion at that point.
And I
Yeah.
think too, what needs to be noted on that, like what you said about I'm going to choose love over hate, like even in that moment, no matter what he's saying or doing, like if we as a collective consciousness, we as a collective community,
Yeah.
like as a world, if
Mhm.
we all looked on him with such love and like understanding and compassion, think about
Mhm.
how he could have released whatever emotion he was having and it
Mhm.
would have been okay. Like, okay, he had his outburst. We're all allowed anger. We all have it. And
Exactly.
then it's like in that moment, he probably would have cried. Like if we all would have been like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. Like,
Yeah.
let us love you through this. Like just if we all would have been there for him to support him, no matter how people act, you
Yeah.
don't know what their upbringing is. You don't know what their trauma is. And
Mhm.
to me, it feels like if we could just in the moments where people have their hard times, love them
Mhm.
through it. Like that's really what the love languages is all about. It's like when
Yeah.
someone's freaking out and having that moment, it's because their love cup is full. I mean, it's as empty. Like they
Yeah.
need to be filled. And
Mhm.
so
Exactly.
our job as a community, like as humans, to help and love one another and to lift up the ones who are struggling, even if it is over the Super Bowl, like it doesn't
Right.
matter. Like it mattered to him and that's okay.
Exactly. And I feel like it's true. Like, probably would have that reaction of like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. And I'm
Yeah.
sure he is. Like, like I feel like he's seen that meme and the video and it's all over. Like,
Yeah.
and so I mean
And
I just,
remember Will Smith when Will and Jada had that, like when Will went up and like, did he slap Chris Rock or something?
yeah,
I don't remember
uh-huh.
what it was, but
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
felt horrible for Will. Like of course I felt bad for Jada and I felt bad for Chris Rock, but I'm like,
Mhm.
in that moment,
Yeah.
something triggered for him that he was reacting to from his child space. It was his inner child that was, and I think he even came out and he apologized and talked about why it was triggering for him.
Yeah.
And a
Mhm.
lot of it had to do with her having alopecia, and he was very sensitive when it comes to her.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. Like he loves her, and we do crazy things for love. Like
Mhm.
that's just what it is.
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly. And I feel like it's like, yeah, like you said, something was empty
yeah,
that, that child will come out and react. And it's unless we're able to kind of like take a step, 5 seconds.
yeah,
I love the 5 second rule in the context of not just taking 5 seconds to then act on something you're fearful of,
yeah,
but also taking 5 seconds to not react to something you're
yeah.
fearful of. Like doing like, okay, how would my best self act in this situation,
Right.
and I think that does, I mean, we don't always have it all the time, but
Yeah,
the more we allow that self-awareness into our life, I think the better off that we'll all be rather than so reactionary in a negative
yeah,
way. So no, I agree. Like it's a good time to remind ourselves to like,
yeah,
hey, that was one time like that person did that. Like you can't say like, you know,
yeah.
that doesn't happen to you as well. Like, yeah.
Right. We all get angry. Like
We're all
there's not
getting,
one person on this planet that can say they've never been angry. Like I don't,
yeah,
if you're saying
exactly.
that, I find it hard to believe that.
I know, right?
Sorry.
You
We
didn't
all
say
get angry.
one hurtful word to one person in your entire life,
Yeah.
like that you kind
Yeah.
of might feel a little guilty for later on. Like, come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
we've all been there.
Something.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true.
Well, I think on that note, we like, I know you probably have your other
Yeah.
mindset group. Yeah. Cause it's
Yeah.
7:40.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's 8:40 your time. What
Oh
time do you
yeah. Yep.
do the mindset group?
Oh
8:45.
yeah. Yeah. I'll probably just head on over right after
Okay.
that. So, but no, this was really good, Cassie, and
That's
thank
so
you
good.
for sharing and
You
allowing the space for me to cry
Yeah,
because I
I know. I'm like,
let
next
it
time I'm gonna
out.
cry. I'm gonna
I was
have the
like,
intention to cry too, because I want to let my emotions out.
yeah, right. I know. Join me. I
You know,
know.
it's fun. I know. Come join
Yeah.
me.
Join
Join
me.
me on my
Here's
ledge.
your waterproof mascara. We're gonna have a cry
Yes.
party.
You know what's funny is I cry all the time, but what I've noticed over the last probably like maybe couple of years, because I'm always in this space, I've trained myself to always hold myself at a not professional, but like I don't allow myself to go there. So maybe next time I'm gonna allow myself to go there because I cry
Yeah.
outside, like if I'm just in like life or whatever, or if it's like a clothes Zoom, but if I'm like live, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's very sad.
It is. It is.
I'm like,
Let
I'm
me.
like, just let it rip. Just
I
like,
know, right? Just like go. Like I
I
know.
love it. I
I've
love
done
it.
that where I was like in a group of people and we were just like talking about the 7 layers of why, and we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out like why it's important we do something. And I just remember I was like, I can't even recognize my voice right now. Like I actually said that because I was like, I don't know who this is talking. Like it sounded like somebody else, and
That's
kind of made
so
me laugh
funny.
too because I was like, demon. I was just
You're
like,
like, I've
oh,
been overtaken.
I know. I was like, who is this? Somebody's taking my body because I don't
Oh
recognize
my
this
gosh.
voice. Like, what is happening right now?
That's
But oh
hilarious.
my gosh, I'm sure there's layers to that I'm trying to understand, and
Yes.
it's okay to be open. Like, I think that's what I love about being comfortable in front of you and
Yeah.
Genevieve, and just like having a space where it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna post this on social media now, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm
And if
not
you
gonna watch
watch,
my video again. I don't like watching myself after I was like, I was there in the moment. It's already out
yeah.
there.
You know
Yeah.
what's funny is I don't usually watch myself either, and I've had like because I'm building my app like on the back end, and so I've been kind of reviewing some of my videos,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm really wise. Like I was like,
I love that.
like I know it's like
Way to
look
go.
at her. Like it was so funny because it was like one of my like where I got all dressed up, and I was doing it for the app, so it was like all like professional, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, I know what I'm talking about. I should listen to me more. Like
I
I
love
kind of
that.
like
Good
I
for
get into
you.
the moment and I'm like, huh,
Right?
where is that girl right now that knows what she's talking about? When I'm out here doing my thing. She seems to disappear.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute, come back in. Yeah. You belong right here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But I
love
think,
that.
yeah,
Oh,
I think it's like one of the things as coaches, as fitness instructors, just as like knowing, just for all you out there, knowing we are
yeah.
not perfect. Like we make mistakes all the time and we
Exactly.
forget our
Sure.
own,
Mhm.
like our own advice. And so we have to remind ourselves too. So
Yeah.
life isn't
Exactly.
perfect. We're all working towards,
It's so true. But I think it's also so good to like, again, those words of affirmation you just gave yourself, like that is so powerful of like
yeah,
recognizing, wow, like I've come pretty far. Like, wow, this is
Yeah.
such a cool, like I get to see myself here. Like, whereas, I don't know, you can kind of like take yourself out of context and be like, you know what? I wished I would have been this person and now I am that person. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you can even look at yourself like, wow, my 20-year-old self can appreciate
Yeah.
this right
Yeah.
now. Like, wow,
Absolutely.
you've been able to overcome these things. And then it allows you to dream 20 years from now to be like,
Yeah.
you know, like wow, what is my 20
Yeah.
my 60-year-old self telling myself right
Yeah.
now? Yeah, keep going,
Exactly.
keep exploring that. And so I think that's a beautiful thing. So I love that I think that's a perfect ending because it's like that self-love is right there.
Self-love.
And that's
Yeah.
like, exactly. Everybody take that time to like appreciate and love
Yes.
who you are and who you're becoming. It's not just when you reach a goal. It's like right here, right now, we can all celebrate something that we're
Yeah.
proud of in this moment. So
Exactly.
yeah. Well,
For
thank you.
sure. Yes. Thank you, Sarah. This was so much fun, and we got to hang out more
Yeah,
often.
I
So
know. I
we'll,
agree. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna
we'll,
call you. We're gonna like just chit
yeah,
chat.
yeah, for sure. I know. We could
Okay.
probably talk all day.
I know, right? It's true. I love it.
I do
Uh,
too. All
well,
right.
thank
Well, have a beautiful day. And if you want to tune into her mindset group, we actually have all the links in the bottom. It's not there yet, but it will be as soon as I go live, then we'll post everything in there. So click the link and go join us and do all the things. It's a lot of fun. And we'll
yeah.
see you guys next Friday, right? Next Friday.
Yeah.
We're moving it to Fridays because it works a
Yes.
little.
Yeah, no,
All right.
that's perfect. I'll be back too. So perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. See you guys.